Before we begin, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because today you're about to witness one of the most intense stories of escape and revenge we've ever told. The courtroom was packed. The silence was broken only by the sharp crack of the judge's gavel, sealing the fate of a man who, to most, was nothing more than a cold-blooded criminal. But to himself, he was the victim of a deadly setup. Sentenced to decades behind bars for the murder of an officer, the man everyone knew as the Hunter kept his gaze steady. He didn't beg for mercy. He didn't try to tell his side of the story. He simply carried a silent hatred and a vow: one day I'll be back. The days in prison were long, cold and quiet, but for the Hunter, every minute was a piece in a much bigger game. While other inmates surrendered to routine, he watched. He mentally recorded every guard shift change, every camera blind spot, every hallway where footsteps took longer to fade. In his cell, he looked like a man resigned to his fate. But in his mind, every detail was sharpened like a blade. He befriended the right inmates, trading small favors for valuable information. He learned which gates had old locks, which guards could be bribed, and the exact moment the night watch let its guard down. There was no rush. He knew that to escape, speed wasn't enough. Precision was everything. And in the silence of the night, lying on his concrete bed, he repeated to himself, "When I get out of here, no one will be safe." It was an ordinary morning, at least on the surface. Guards were leading prisoners to the workyard, the air heavy with the usual tension. But that day, the Hunter spotted something rare, a weakness. One of the outer gates was under repair, and security in that area had been reduced. Two guards chatted idly as a maintenance truck rolled into the yard. The clank of tools, the smell of oil, and the constant movement of workers in different uniforms created the perfect cover for what he was about to do. With calculated steps, he blended in with the workers, keeping his head low and his expression blank. A simple move, rehearsed for months, and he was already at the back of the open truck. When the engine roared to life, his pulse spiked. It wasn't fear. It was pure adrenaline. As the truck rolled past the weakened gate, no one realized that a dangerous prisoner was just seconds from disappearing from sight. In that moment, he wasn't just breaking out of prison. He was running straight into the beginning of his revenge. The dusty road stretched before him like an invitation to chaos. No more walls, no more bars, just the wind in his face and the burn of freedom in his veins. But the Hunter wasn't simply escaping. He was settling scores. The first name on his list was carved into his mind like a scar, the man who had lied under oath to ensure his conviction. Following old intel and sharp memories, he found a small roadside bar. Inside, the air smelled of stale beer and cigarette smoke. In the corner, the traitor laughed with two other men, completely unaware that his past was about to walk through the door. The Hunter approached in silence, each step heavy as a hammer of judgment. No shouting, no warning, just the dull, deadly thud of a precise strike, dropping the man before he could even register what was happening. The whole bar froze. The silence that followed was broken only by a whisper, one by one as until the last. With fresh blood still on his hands, the Hunter didn't look back. Every second brought him closer to being hunted again, but also closer to the truth that had haunted him for years. Taking a stolen car, he drove down back roads, avoiding any predictable routes. At an old, forgotten gas station, he ran into an old acquaintance, a snitch who made his living selling secrets to the highest bidder. The man tried to back away, but a firm hand on his shoulder and a look that mixed fury and resolve made him talk. Between nervous stammers, the informant revealed something that changed everything. The conspiracy that put him in prison wasn't just personal revenge. It involved corrupt cops, powerful businessmen, and a network of corruption far deeper than he had imagined. Some of the names mentioned were people he had once trusted. In that moment, his mission stopped being just about revenge. Now it was about tearing down the entire system, no matter the cost. The roar of the engine echoed on the asphalt as the Hunter pushed the car harder, knowing police cars and even helicopters were already on his trail. The cold night air lashed his face, each curve a calculated risk. He wasn't just fleeing, he was leading his pursuers away from his next move. Red and blue lights flashed in the distance, predators gaining ground. In the cracked side mirror, he saw his own reflection, focused, unyielding. A single mistake could mean death, but there was no room for error. In a bold move, he veered off the main road, diving onto a dirt trail that cut through the desert. A wall of dust rose behind him, blinding the cruisers for precious seconds. On the horizon, massive rock formations loomed like a natural labyrinth, perfect for vanishing, but deadly for anyone who didn't know the terrain. The chase was heating up, but every mile he gained was another step toward the final reckoning. Deep in the maze of desert rocks, the hunter stopped to regroup. Silence pressed in, broken only by the distant growl of engines. Then, from a cloud of dust, a black mat truck emerged, and behind the wheel was a face he would never forget. Vargas, a mercenary who had once tried to kill him in an ambush and failed. Now the scar on Vargas's face was a permanent reminder that the hunter forgave nothing, and forgot even less. Vargas wasn't alone. 3 armed men jumped from the truck, forming a semicircle, their grins promising death. "Never thought I'd get the chance to finish the job," Vargas sneered, spinning his gun. But the hunter stepped forward. No fear, just the razor-sharp tension before an explosion. The desert, once silent, was about to erupt in violence. The clash with Vargas was swift and brutal. Gunfire cracked through the rocks, mingling with the smell of gunpowder and dust. When the smoke cleared, 2 of Vargas's men were down, and the mercenary himself, wounded, retreated to his truck. But the victory tasted bitter. Minutes later, the hunter encountered a familiar face, Duran, an old hunting partner who seemed eager to help. By the glow of a small campfire, Duran spoke of safe routes, hideouts, and contacts who could offer shelter. It all seemed perfect, until the hunter noticed the nervous glances, the constant looks toward the horizon, and the low rumble of engines getting closer. Then it hit him. This wasn't a reunion. It was a setup. Duran had sold him out, and now the hunters had become the hunted. But the hunter wasn't going down easy. The approaching engines were no longer just a threat. They were a death sentence. Rage burned hotter than fear as the hunter realized the depth of Duran's betrayal. The man tried to explain, but one cold, cutting look shut him up. Headlights pierced the dark, revealing 3 trucks surrounding the camp. Armed men poured out, moving like predators, but this time it wasn't just an ambush, it was personal. Among them, the hunter spotted the man who had smirked during his trial, one of the faces behind the lies that put him away. The air grew heavy. There would be no running, only a fight to the death in that patch of desert. He tightened his grip on the gun, took a deep breath and muttered, "Now, it's just me and you." The first shot shattered the night, and in seconds, the open ground became a storm of bullets and screams. The hunter moved with lethal precision, taking down enemies one by one until only the man from the trial remained. Wounded, he tried to flee, but was cornered against a rock. Who paid for this? The hunter's voice was low but deadly. The man hesitated, sweating, but the blade at his throat loosened his tongue. It was all orchestrated by a powerful network, dirty cops, influential businessmen, and former hunting partners who had sold out for dirty money. The truth hit like a punch. He hadn't just been betrayed. He had been used as a scapegoat to cover up an even bigger crime. And the worst part, some names on that list were people he had once called family. "Now I know exactly where to aim," he whispered. Night fell over the desert, shadows stretching long over the sand. Following the trail of his remaining enemies, the hunter reached a heavily guarded camp, lit by fires and surrounded by vehicles. Among the men patrolling, he recognized key figures from the scheme, including a cop who was supposed to uphold the law but now commanded criminals like a warlord. Patiently, he studied every movement, every guard rotation. There would be no second chance. He would either wipe them out or die trying. The hot wind carried the smell of gasoline and gunpowder. When the first shot rang out, the whole desert would hear his roar for vengeance. Moving silently between shadows, he froze at the sight of Rita, the woman everyone thought was just a hostage, standing free, speaking to one of the leaders. For a moment he hesitated. Could she have been playing both sides all along, or was she deep undercover with her own agenda? In this world, loyalties shifted as quickly as the wind. When her eyes locked with his, there was no surprise, only tension. "It's not about you or me, Hunter. It's about who's still breathing at sunrise," she said. Now he had to decide, take her out as a threat or gamble on her for a few more minutes. In the desert, hesitation could cost lives. The distant roar of engines signaled the inevitable. Reinforcements were coming, and soon the camp would be surrounded. But it wasn't just police. Mercenaries were moving in to make sure no one left alive. Spotlights cut through the dark, revealing silhouettes with weapons advancing from all sides. Dust choked the air as shouted commands echoed. Rita loaded her weapon without looking away from the horizon. "Looks like we fight together, for now." He nodded, unsure if she'd be his salvation or his undoing. The first shot cracked like thunder, and the desert exploded into chaos. Bullets tore through the air, lit by the glow of explosions. The hunter moved like a predator, dropping enemies with surgical precision, while Rita covered his back with rapid, accurate fire. Improvised grenades ripped through vehicles, the smoke stinging eyes, but offering cover. Amid the chaos, he spotted the operations leader heading for an armored car. Instinct took over. He plowed through guards until the man was cornered against a rock wall. "This is for everything you took from me." One shot, and a decade of hatred ended in a heartbeat. But even with the leader down, the night was far from over. The battleground was now a smoldering wasteland of fire, bodies, and twisted metal. The hunter, wounded but unbroken, walked the camp, making sure no one responsible would escape. Rita watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. The only sounds were the crackle of flames and the distant whine of approaching sirens. Without a word, he holstered his gun and walked past her. She gave a faint smile, maybe relief, maybe challenge. On the horizon, police lights grew closer. Staying meant certain capture, but his list wasn't complete. He swung a leg over an abandoned motorcycle, kicked it to life, and vanished into the dark desert, leaving behind a battlefield and the unspoken promise that as long as he breathed, the hunt would never end.